Do you want to learn how to crochet? I got you. I'll teach you the easiest and best way to begin crocheting. Starting can be intimidating. What kind of yarn? What kind of hook? Do I need other supplies? It can be so overwhelming. But after today, you'll be a pro. And if you stick around by subscribing, we'll have so much more fun together. So let's go. I'm going to start by sharing a few supplies that you're going to need to start your crochet journey. I'll throw them up here on the screen so that you can screenshot this for your shopping trip. If you want a more in-depth look at these items and learn my favorites, drop a comment down below and I'll make that video next. All right, so we're going to start with yarn. This is the first item that you're going to need in your crochet journey. There's tons of different yarns and there's plenty that you can use as a beginner crocheter. I prefer yarns that are very tightly woven, that is, it's got a tight twist to it so that the strands aren't breaking apart. But I also prefer something like a tubular yarn because there's no individual strands making up that yarn, so you can definitely see your stitches way easier. As a beginner, you want to stay away from fuzzy, furry, and frizzy yarn. It's not good for beginners and it's very hard to see stitches. And until you get a few things under your belt, I would prefer sticking with something that is just easier to work with. All right, so you've picked out your yarn. Let's talk about it. Each yarn is going to have like their brand, the name of the skein of yarn, and all of that. So you're gonna look for this little section in the back, and they're gonna have a dye lot number plus a like color number or color name. So the name of this yarn is Cadet, and the dye lot is 53235. Why that makes a difference is if you're making a project where you're going to need multiple skeins of one yarn, you want to match the dye lot so that your project will all match color-wise, because different dye lots can vary in color slightly, and it would stink to get through your whole project and realize that half of it is slightly a different color. Next, you're going to find this big rectangle box on the back. This is where you're gonna find all the information that you need for this skein of yarn. So for instance, this yarn is 16 ounces, it's 1,020 yards, and it's a medium size 4 weight yarn. Now you're gonna have two boxes, one with knitting needles and one with a crochet hook. The crochet hook, since we're talking about crochet, is going to tell you that you want to have a J10 or 6mm hook. So that's what they recommend for this skein of yarn. Now, that does not mean that you can only use a 6mm hook with this. If you're doing something like amigurumi, a 6mm hook is going to be too big and it's going to create holes in your fabric. You're not gonna want that. So you're probably gonna size down to like a 3.75 to a 4.5mm hook, somewhere in there. And if you were making something like a blanket, you might want to size up to an 8mm hook so that this huge project can go a little bit faster. This is a good starting recommendation point, and you can vary up 2mm or down 2mm, somewhere in that range. So the next section is going to talk about what the yarn is made out of. So this one is made out of 100% acrylic. Next, these are washing label icons. So the first one talks about washing it at roughly 86 degrees in temperature. This one talks about do not bleaching. The next one is tumble dry normally. This one is no iron, and the circle with the A means that you can use any solvent if you're dry cleaning. Next, it'll talk about like where the yarn was made, and this next one has an Oecotex standard label. This states that the textile has passed safety tests for harmful substances. All right, so now you know everything about yarn, let's move on to hooks. Since this was, the recommendation was a 6mm hook, I have a 6mm hook here. Now, like I was saying, if you were doing amigurumi or a shirt that you didn't want it very holey, you would use something smaller like a 4.5mm hook. Any hook will do. Like any brand, if you wanted solid metal, anything would work. Just find one that you feel might be most comfortable for you to work with. I really, really like these clover hooks. They're my absolute favorite. There's something about how like they just glide really nicely, and so I do really enjoy these. All right, the next item on our list is scissors. You can literally use any pair of scissors that you want. Kitchen scissors, fabric scissors, craft scissors, whatever you want. I have these for today's video. So these are Fiskars and they have like a spring in there, so it's like a little easier like on your hands, but really anything will work. I've used a knife, I've used nail clippers, really anything works. Our next item is a tapestry needle. Tapestry needles are a very thick needle. It's not like a sewing needle. It's not pokey, it's got more of a blunt end, and it has a larger eye at the top, so it's easier to get your yarn through. And these are gonna be used for weaving in your ends at the beginning and the end of your project. Or if you had to switch colors and tie on, you'll have to weave those ends in. Most tools, I'll use whatever, except for this. I always use a metal tapestry needle. It is by far, hands down, the best product. And the reason being is they make plastic ones. The plastic is bendable, it breaks. Like, I just had terrible luck. Plus the eye is bigger and it does not want to weave through your project very well. So hands down, start with the metal one, you won't regret it. Now, the most underrated tool in the crochet world is this little thing right here. This is a stitch marker. Many crocheters feel like this is an unnecessary tool. We all think that we can count until we start crocheting and realize that we can't count for nothing because the phone rings, the kids interrupt us, the TV's on, or something goes awry and now we don't remember where we were. So a stitch marker is perfect, especially if you're doing things like working in the round, like on amigurumi or hats. This is going to help you see the beginning of your stitches. It's also really helpful if you're chaining like 200 for a huge blanket. You can put a stitch marker at like every 50 chains so that you don't have to count 200 over and over and over again. So that's helpful for that. Stitch markers are also beneficial for marking the beginning and the last stitch of something like a blanket, where you are having to make sure that you come all the way to the end and not put a stitch in, say, the chains. Stitch markers are underrated, but they're totally worth it. Okay, so we've gone through all of our items that we need for our crochet project. So let's get started. Okay, so when I'm getting a skein of yarn ready to start crocheting, I like to pull from the center. Now, some people would rip this off and just start using the outer piece of yarn that's out there. I don't like doing that because I don't want my yarn to just roll off everywhere. Since I sell my items, I don't like my yarn to hit the floor because we do have pets and I don't want there to be hair or something on it. So I do prefer a center pull. Now, when you do that, what's going to happen is you're going to get all the way in the center as deep as you can go and pull out whatever's in the center. This is called yarn vomit. This is common with this Lion brand yarn. All right, so once you're left with one strand, you know that somewhere in this mess, you have the other end of your yarn. All right, so here's one strand here. Here's a yarn vomit. This has also got one strand with it. So then your single is going to be over here somewhere. There we go, got it. All right, so with this, you can kind of just set that aside. It'll be fine. You'll just work from it. Now that we have found our end, we're going to begin crocheting. So what we need to do is we need to start with a slip knot. That's how you begin most crochet projects. Not everyone, but most of them. And for this project, we are going to start with a slip knot because we're going to start with chains and work in rows. You're going to take the end of your yarn. You're going to take your left hand with your finger out, your right hand with your tail, and you're going to come in front of your finger and come around 2 times. So you're going to have 2 loops on your finger and the tail coming towards you this way. The working yarn is in the back towards the skein. Now what you're going to do, and you kind of want to leave a little bit of length here, maybe 3 inches or so. You're going to take the back yarn, bring it over the front, but leave it on your finger. And then take this back yarn and come over that one and drop it off. And now you have a slip knot and you can tighten it up. And this is where your hook is going to go to begin working. Okay, I'll show you one more time. Now this will just, if you pull it like this, it'll just come undone. Okay, so finger out, take your tail, come around 2 times. You have about 3 inches of tail. Take the back yarn, bring it over the front, back yarn, bring it over and drop it off. Okay, and put your hook in the hole, tighten it up. That's how you make the perfect slip knot. Now we're going to begin our chaining. This is going to be the foundation row of our crochet project. This is what you will crochet into. For this project, we're gonna have 10 stitches across. So then we need to chain 11. So however many you want to cross, you need to add one more so that you have height at the end for your stitches that come back the other way. Okay, so to make a chain, you're going to yarn over, pull it through. Same thing, yarn over, pull it through. So you don't want your hook all crazy. You want to keep it facing you, yarn over. You're gonna basically hook that and pull through. Yarn over, pull through. This is where you want to be very consistent with what you're doing, because if not, you will twist up your chains and then it will be very confusing to know where you're working at. Yarn over, pull through. All right, so let's look and see how many that we have. So this first little loop right here, this is the slip knot, so you do not want to count that. So then we'll begin by the V's. So you have 1 V there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, and we do not count the one that's on the hook. But since our project is going to be 10 across, we need to add one more for height. So we'll yarn over, add one more. So that's our chain. And see how straight it is, nothing's curling or twisting. That's how you know you were very consistent with what you were doing. So when you begin crocheting, you're going to then be working back this direction over here. You don't want to go into the first chain because that was the extra one that we were doing to give it height. Okay, so do not work into the first one here. You want to work into the second one. What we're going to do for today is we're going to learn how to do the half double crochet. And that is because it's a little bit easier to see how many rows that you've done. And so that's a good place to begin. We're going to yarn over. That's how you start a half double crochet. So we're not going into this first one, but we're going to go into the second one. In that top loop, we're going to put our hook in, and then we're going to catch our yarn that we're working with, or working yarn, and we're going to pull it through. So now you'll have 3 loops on your hook. Then you'll yarn over and you'll pull through all 3 loops, leaving 1 left. So it's kind of hard. You kind of have to hold stuff to make sure that everything stays straight. You don't want things to get twisted up. So my working yarn, I literally just pinch between these 2. There's some people that do different winds around their finger, things like that. You can work with that and find out what works for you, but this is how I like to do it. You'll yarn over. So we went into that one there. Went into that one there. Now we need to go into the next one, which is right here. And you go into that back loop. You draw up a loop. Okay, so you have 3 on your hook. Then you'll yarn over again and pull through all 3. Yarn over. Insert into the next one. Pull up a loop. Yarn over. Pull through all 3. This is where you need to familiarize yourself with all the parts, and it'll just become second nature to work the stitches. So yarn over, insert, draw up a loop, yarn over, pull through. Now, the foundation chain is this is really the hardest part of crocheting. This is the part where, you have to make sure things don't get twisted, and then after this it'll be much easier to work your stitches. So now we have 10 half double crochets. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now again, just like when we were chaining and we chained the extra one at the end, that's what we're gonna do on every single row. If you do not chain at the end, what will happen is the sides of your project will be very tight, and it won't allow for extra height for the half double crochets to go into. So just like we did on the base, you yarn over and just pull it through. And that's gonna give the height that you need for the half double crochets when we work back. So since we're working in rows, now we're going to turn our work. Now this is the back. So where it's tricky is we've gotten used to seeing the fronts of the half double crochet. Now we have to see the back. Okay, this is where it then can get kind of tricky to know where to go, and that's why having stitch markers at the beginning and the end of your project might be helpful for you. Okay, so we're gonna work back. We did our chain for height. Now we're gonna yarn over. We're gonna work into this first stitch here. So insert, draw up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. Then you'll yarn over and pull through all 3. Now, if you wanted to place the stitch marker, you would place it on this first one here. So you open it up, you place it on this first V that you just completed. Right, so then you put the stitch marker there, and that's how you remember that you have to come back all the way to this half double crochet. The other thing you can do is count and make sure you have 10. Okay, so let's go into the next one. So you yarn over, you go into the next space right here. Okay, so you insert it. So you'll notice that there's a V on top. Okay, and you'll draw up the loop through the V, and you have 3 on the hook. Then you yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, yarn over, insert into the V, yarn over and draw up the loop. See the V right there on top? You want to make sure you go through both of those. You'll yarn over, insert your hook, draw up a loop, yarn over, pull through. Now there's different ways to hold a hook. This is the pencil hold, where you're holding it like a writing pencil. Some people prefer that. Some people prefer to hold it like they're cutting a knife. So with the knife hold, you're gonna just hold it like a knife and do the exact same thing. So you yarn over, insert your hook, draw the loop up. You have 3 on there. You pull through all 3. See? Now, this is where it gets tricky at the end. So see where the end is, you can easily get confused as to whether or not you go into this last part right here or not, because it feels like you're at the end, but are you? So one way to do it is to have a stitch marker here, knowing that you need to be there, and putting a stitch in that marker, or you can also count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have 9 stitches, and we know that we have 10 across, so we do need to do 1 more. So you're gonna go through the V, draw up the loop, and complete it. Okay, so why we like to start with the half double crochet when teaching is it's very easy to see the rows. With a single crochet, it's a little harder with single crochet to see your rows because the stitches are a little bit shorter. With the half double crochet, it's a little taller and a little bit easier to see that this whole section here is one row and this whole section here is one row. So we've completed 2 full rows. The chains at the bottom, the foundation chains, they do not really count as a row. They just are the beginning part that you are crocheting into. Okay, so remember at the end, you always chain 1 to create height. As you can see, that gives us the height for our half double crochets. And we'll turn our work. Then you're going to yarn over and work all the way back through. You might want to put a stitch marker right here in between those so that you know where you're at when you come back. And be careful. See how I split that yarn down below? I snagged it and split it. This is why I say things like tubular yarn is a little bit better, because you're going to be a little bit harder to split yarn like that. Just pull it out and then unhook yourself and you'll be fine. Then this is our last stitch, so we know we have to work in this last one, so we could take the stitch marker out. We can go through the V, draw up a loop, and pull through all 3. So now you can easily see that we have 1 row, 2 row, 3 rows. Remember, chain at the end for height, turn your work. So we'll yarn over and we'll do 10 more half double crochets down the row. So when you're going along like this, one way to check your work is to make sure that you have 10 crochets or 10 stitches working your way down. So let's double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we are still tracking at what we're supposed to be doing. You can see you have 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, and 4 rows. We've completed 4 full rows. Chain 1 at the end for height and turn. I recommend making a little swatch like this to begin instead of getting into a huge big project as a beginning crocheter. Just start by making a little swatch so that it's a little easier for you to kind of get the hang of it instead of having the pressure of having to make, a big project perfectly. Get used to doing things consistently, like chaining consistently. And how to hold your hook and how to hold your working yarn. This is that tricky one. It's always a little hard to see. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 rows. I hooked that again, so this is where you want to make sure you're not doing that. It's easy to kind of split the yarn and make that mistake, so you want to go slow and make sure that you don't hook the yarn below. One thing I always find very helpful is to learn what a stitch looks like. You have your 2 posts down here that connect you to the bottom, and then this is your yarn over, making it the half double crochet. And you have your V on top, and then in the back you have these extra loops. That's just indicative of a half double crochet. Okay, and so we have 1 row, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. One of the ways that you can tell the rows is by looking at these little V's right here. That's what's gone into the chain. And the V here is what's gone into row 1. The V here has gone into row 2. The V here goes down into row 3. This is the 4th row, but the V is what connects it to the 3rd row. This V connecting it to the 4th row, this one connecting it to the 5th, and then this is the 6th. So now you've finished your project. You want to be done at this point. So then what you'll do is you will cut your yarn. You want to leave somewhat of a kind of a long tail because we're going to need the tapestry needle to be able to weave our ends back in. So we will cut our yarn, then we'll take our project, we'll yarn over, pull through, and tie it tight. Okay, so now everything is tied. The end is tied and the beginning is tied with our slip knot. So now what we need is our tapestry needle. This is where the tapestry needle comes in handy because it has the larger eye, making it easier for our yarn to go through versus like a sewing needle. You really can't get your yarn through there. Make sure you have all of the strands on there, but do you see how they split? It's something that you have to be careful of as a beginner. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to weave back and forth 3 times. So what I like to do is go through these V's that went down into the row below. I like to go through there and just run my hook or run my tapestry needle all the way down. Okay, so see now back here it kind of missed one, so I would pull it back out. Make sure that I got all the loops. Okay, so I have V's there. We have V's here. So then you can go down, I don't know, 4 or 5. It's kind of up to you, up to your preference. So you pull it through. Now, you don't want to go straight back into here because then you're going to just undo what you did. So you want to kind of skip a post and work back down. Okay, make sure the back looks good. And run our yarn through. Don't pull incredibly tight because then see how it made a kind of a hole. So you kind of want to loosen that up a little bit. And then again, don't come back through here because that's where your yarn is, so it'll just undo what you did. So skip over this post here, come through here, work it back down. This will ensure that it's just not going to come undone. Okay, so take your needle off, and then now you're going to cut this extra tail, making sure that you're not cutting any posts or anything. Then you can kind of just stretch it back out a little bit and it will hide itself nicely. Now we have to do the bottom tail. Okay, so now we've threaded our tapestry needle, we're on the bottom, and we're going to work our way down. Again, going through a couple of posts.
Oh, see how I skipped a section there? So we want to make sure that we aren't doing that. Okay, now we're going to pull our yarn through. Again, working back. This is why it is crucial to leave kind of a longer tail at the beginning, just so that you do have enough for your tapestry needle to kind of work back and forth. Okay, work down, take it off. Okay, and now we're going to cut that. And kind of just give it a little pull, and now the project is finished. Okay, so this was 10 stitches across and 6 rows high, right? So you can see kind of it fits about the palm of my hand. You can also see that it's pretty holy. That's what the 6mm hook will give. It's going to give more of a holy fabric. If we had done a 4.5mm hook, you're not going to have as many holes in between here. So if you were doing like a shirt, you might want to do something more like a 4.5mm.
Okay, you did it. You completed your very first crochet swatch. Now, I would do this multiple times. Keep practicing, keep trying, making sure that your chains are going the same direction, that they're not getting twisted. Make sure that your half double crochets are being worked all the way to the ends, that you're not skipping the last stitch, things like that. Make sure that you're doing things accurately, getting used to how you like to hold your hook. Do you hold it like the pencil? Do you hold it like a knife? Figure out what works and what is comfortable for you, because then when you go to actually crochet something from like a pattern, you're gonna be a lot more comfortable with the process of it because you've practiced beforehand. Then you can focus on reading patterns and things like that and not have to worry about learning how to do all of the nuances of crochet. If you found this video helpful, please comment down below, like our video, and subscribe, because we're gonna put out more videos like this. I plan to teach you how to single crochet, double crochet, all kinds of stuff like that. So if you like this, please stick around for more.